Tonight you join us again upstairs in the den with one of the fathers of Retropower and the den. We have Nat here. Nat, first of all, thanks for inviting me along.
That's quite all right.
And very, very cosy sofas here.
It's quite warm sofas, actually.
Amazing. Amazingly good. And I would offer you some confectionery, but Wookie has...
We seem to have a small selection.
Well, Wookie has to grant permission for us to touch that. So it feels like a long time ago since we met and talked about or saw Retropower.
Yeah, it is quite a while. I think was your first visit to us regarding an Allegro?
It possibly was. I can neither confirm nor deny.
I think that might have been. Would that have been 2013?
I bet it was over a decade ago.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, it was a good while ago now.
And of course, in the early days of Retropower, it was mostly, or from what I saw on the internet and things, engine conversions. You became synonymous with really neat engine conversions.
A lot of Opel.
And a lot of Opel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Cal and I had both got quite a bit of Opel history going on, and I had a Manta, and not as my first car, but nearly as my first car. I had a Manta when I was 18, nearly first car. I had a rubbishy Polo that I crashed spectacularly, and then I got a Manta because it was far more sensible. And I had a Manta, and I had another Manta that I stuck. I had an 88 exclusive I bought that in 96.
So when they were kind of
worthless?
It was
8 years old, and it already needed sills, A-pillars, and inner wings welding.
What?
At 8 years old, yeah.
So, well, actually, talking of welding, this is what I've got a couple of little prompts on my notes here, and it says that you started driving tractors when you were about 14.
12 on my own.
Oh, 12.
6 sitting on somebody's knee.
Right, so that's a lie. And you got a degree in agricultural engineering.
That's right, that is right.
Sounds a bit anti what goes on at Retropower.
It does, but you'd be surprised. It's a common misconception, but if you take a sort of the stage of where cars are at any one moment in time, tractor technology in agriculture is probably about 10 years ahead of it.
10?
Yeah, I would say. So electronics on tractors in the mid-90s were already, I would say, where electronics on cars are at almost now. So,
really?
Yeah, so CAN bus systems and various other bus systems, and fibre optic bus was a thing on combine harvesters in, say, 1994.
Wow, so actually agricultural vehicles are almost closer to sort of Formula One
in a strange way,
than road cars.
That's a bit of an example, but in a strange way, because it's not volume production. Well, it is volume production, but it's nothing like the volume production of cars. Cars are ultimately largely designed as sort of mass transport. Whereas farm machinery has to operate in a field for X number of hours without braking. Yeah. And the design spec's a bit different. So the technology was actually surprisingly far ahead.
And the employment of GPS in order to cut fields.
We were working on I hasten to add, I wasn't at the cutting edge of anything. I just worked for a machinery manufacturer on my university placement and sort of learnt from there, really. But we were using GPS then, and that was in 1996 then. So we were using GPS guidance on tractors in 96.
Early days.
And ironically, when we run in our workshop now, we've got a CNC plasma cutter that we use for cutting out all our sort of bits of steel and things. And I first used one of those while I was on my placement. Then it was early 97.
So how did you go from messing around? I mean, I know you and your brother grew up with an old farmhouse.
Yes, a little small holding. My parents, who are around outside somewhere, actually. My parents are around. I don't know. I think they're still here. They certainly were earlier.
Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Seviour.
They actually live quite not too far from you. They're in Rutland. So
are they?
Yeah, they're in Wigan.
They're Rutlanders.
So, not too far from you.
Well, come over and if you ever want to come and say hi.
Small holding. So growing up in a small holding area, lots of farms in the village. We're kind of just surrounded by tractors and everything going on, stuff going on like that. Yeah. So I kind of just got involved in messing around on farms, really, and I lived opposite a farm, so I used to go over there and make a nuisance of myself till they let me get in a tractor and that sort of thing when I was about 6, I think, started then. And then the guy running that place shut that farm. He packed in farming, So I got a bit lost then for a couple of years. I would have been about 10 when he stopped farming, and so I got a bit lost for a couple of years. And when I was 12, or well, 11 or 12, I remember going up to the next sort of nearest local farm and basically sitting on a gate, watching them doing stuff until they felt sorry for me and said, "Do you want to come and sit in a tractor?" So he did, and then they said, "Do you want to steer the tractor?" And then,
yeah,
"Do you want to drive the tractor?"
This is getting creepy. Do you want to come and help us do some stuff?
Yeah. Do you want to come and help? And then, after a year of basically being a nuisance, they then said, "Well, you can drive a tractor now. Would you like it if we paid you?" I was like, "Well, yeah, that sounds like a win-win. I'd do it if you didn't." So being paid to do it is ideal. And so then I started doing some tractor driving and loading bales in a field and with a loader, and just pulling trailers around. And then my first car experience was there. That ties in, actually. I'm leapfrogging your questions here, but my first car experience was either, and I can't remember, it's one of two, either a Series 2 Land Rover, which was ruined. I pulled the back off the chassis on that, trying to pull a flat roll, it ripped the chassis in half. Or a 504 pickup, Peugeot 504 pickup. I think it was a 504 pickup.
You don't see those anymore.
No. But then it was just a normal car. It was just a farm runabout. We used to put 1.5 ton pallets of seed in the back of it and take it down the field and whatever. Take all the diesel out in jerry cans out to the tractors. Now, of course, once all the seed and diesel was not in the back of it, they'd go sideways on stubble really well. So when I was probably about 13, 14, driving sideways on stubble in a Peugeot pickup was good fun.
So that planted the seed maybe for you going into the world of engineering.
I think the engineering came from the tractors and stuff, and mending stuff on the farm, like stick welder. They had a stick welder. Metal needed gluing back together. So learn how to use a stick welder. Learn how to use a grinder. Learn what a hacksaw does, all that. I also had, probably tied into that, I went to Market Bosworth High School when I was between, it would have been 12 and 14, whatever. I lose track of the years, but 12 and 14 at high school there. And we had a very, very old school, very unorthodox, definitely would not get a job in teaching now, a teacher called Mr. Bunting. And he was absolutely non-PC. But used to just get us doing all sorts of metalwork that no way would a school sanction being done now. And I remember he had us arc welding, making barbecues.
Wow.
So when I would have been 12 then, and he got us set up with stick welders and said, "Well, cut all these bits of metal," and we got us arc welding barbecues together. And then he made model steam engines, so he used to get us making bits for his model steam engines that he then sold, I think.
Well, if you listen to a podcast called Smith and Stiff, we never reference small steam engines or what the people that get involved with steam engines do.
You're probably right here.
No, we don't.
I didn't have any problems, but I could visualise exactly that. Let's not go there.
No, I'm not going there. Instead, let's go towards the whole engine conversion thing. So you did a 16-valve Redtop Vauxhall conversion in your Opel Manta.
Yes, that would have been in 1996, I think. Yeah.
Wow. The year I passed my driving
I went down to see Steve Broughton at SBD. When I don't believe had been long in business. He had his little unit at Chessington. It was a one-car unit he had at Chessington, and I think it was just him on his own then, before Dick Hulbert started working for him. I think it was just Steve Broughton. And I went down there and he said, "I've got a set of throttle bodies and an MBE 913 ECU and a loom that I've just pulled off a Dakar buggy. You can have it second-hand for 700 quid if you want. And put it on your 16 valve," because I was running it on the standard GM management at the time. So I went down there and we stuck the ECU on it. He stuck it in his chip burner and programmed it with his laptop, because this was pre-direct flashable ECUs. Chucked the loom on it, chucked the throttle bodies on it. He hadn't got an air filter, so it was open trumpets, and I drove it back up the M40 on open trumpets, and that was a happy drive.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
So that was 96.
Have you always got on well with your brother Cal?
Yeah. We have plenty of disagreements, but we've always kind of got, there's always an understanding below that of kind of what each other are like, why we flare up when we flare up, why we don't flare up when we don't flare up, and an appreciation of our differing abilities. He's much more level-headed about things. I get a bit hot under the collar and blow up about stuff. He's very good at design, aesthetic design. He's got a very good eye for the artistic side of design. I've got a pretty good eye for the mechanical side of design, and also when it is pleasing, there's the various sayings about if something looks right, it usually is, which isn't it's not actually a true saying, but something along those lines. I've got an eye for mechanical design that is right, that looks right and works.
Yeah.
He's got an eye also then for putting an aesthetic edge to that as well, and a vision for like a finished vehicle. I struggle for the vision on a finished vehicle. He can see the whole vehicle.
So you go into the minutiae of the
the
mechanics.
Yeah, the mechanics of it, and just knowing like, no, that's not going to work. I can pretty immediately say, no, that's a shit idea, it's not going to work. Or, yeah, that's a good idea, it is going to work.
Yeah.
That sort of blanket, it needs to be kind of roughly designed like this if it's got any hope of working. That side of things as well.
I mean, I know there's a level of obsession with this, which is born out of passion.
Yeah.
I mean that in the nicest possible way. Take the Gordon Murray Mark 1 Ford Escort project that you guys landed, which I was so pleased because I'd known you guys for a long time. I'd known some big projects had already been done by Retropower. But when the phone rings and it's actual Gordon Murray saying, I have a car that I want you to build, please can you build it for me? Yeah. That's amazing.
That was probably the biggest turning point and contributory factor really to the history of the business, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I've said this to a couple of people walking around the yard actually earlier. There were various things of the dealings with Gordon, and they weren't like big headline things. They were small details, and you know Gordon, you've met him, and you know what he's like.
Yeah.
And it's those little details and the unsaid things that make all the difference. And it was the fact that he refused to discuss money. He refused to discuss money in any sense on that project.
Really?
And contrary to what you might think,
it could have been a scammer.
People would sit back from that and think, oh my God, that's a ridiculous thing. You could have just charged him anything.
Yeah.
But of course, it doesn't do that at all. It actually makes you more conscious of that because you think, oh my God, if he's just trusting us to do this, we've got to be pretty careful.
Yeah.
We need to be. We need to justify what we're doing here because he's just given us carte blanche. But it also means that you have to be really careful to make sure you do the absolute best job you can do.
Yeah.
Because at no point can you say, well, you said we couldn't do that because you'd only got this much to spend.
Yeah.
Because he's got an open checkbook. There's no corners can be cut.
It's sort of the ultimate element of trust.
It is the absolute, and that's where we learnt a lot, that A, there are customers that will do that.
Yeah.
And B, that it's the ultimate piece of trust, and it just means that we realise that there are people willing to spend a lot of money and entrust that level of detail with us, and people who are in a position to judge that, in a position to be able to judge whether we're capable of doing that.
Yeah.
And it was a quite a big affirmation that maybe we know what we're doing.
Well, maybe we've kind of made. That's almost. I don't need to drop it, but it's almost a microphone drop moment.
Yeah.
And having driven that car and been out with Gordon, but not only that, chatted to Gordon about it in the car park where he's really, his eyes have lit up, and he was talking about that independent rear suspension setup that you developed, and it's like, well, that's got to be from that curious lad who used to dismantle things and not put them back together properly, which is what your brother has said in the notes.
Yes, I did, yes.
To then having somebody like Gordon Murray going, do you know that system that you devised? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. But it is fantastic, and it was. I don't. We're not going to have another moment. I'm quite confident in saying that's not going to happen again. That's a once thing. There isn't another Gordon Murray. That is a once thing. But the interesting bit is that he's very matter of fact about it. So when we were talking about suspension, I asked him some sort of sensible, pretty straightforward questions, and there's no bullshit with him.
Yeah.
It's just, that'll work. That bit's tied to that bit. The forces go up that link. It'll work. People sort of going into a slight bit of detail for a moment, but we've got a reasonably knowledgeable audience around us on today.
Yeah.
I was looking at a wishbone design, the rear wishbone design, and if you look at most rear wishbones for most vehicles, they have two diagonal links that tie to an outboard ball joint. And they usually have a tie bar between them to tie the inner end together at the chassis. And I couldn't really see why you needed a tie bar if you fitted a tie bar into the mounting points on the chassis, because it would take the forces in the same way. And I wanted to use the tie bar as the nut on both the bolts that held it together to remove components and lighten it all. So I said to Gordon, why is there any downside? Am I missing some forces here? Why do people use a tie bar on the wishbone? I showed him the setup, and this is on the video, I think, filmed by our good man here. But I questioned him, and he said, well, you don't need a tie bar. Why would you? The forces are contained by the links. Yes, you've got a little bit of compliance in the bushes, but you don't need a tie bar. Why would you? And I was like, well, that's what I thought. But and it's the same looking at the suspension, having a look at the suspension installed on the car. You know, I thought he might go into some detail about things I don't really understand, and I've never really fully understood the use of caster on the back of a rear-wheel drive car. I understand how the forces act, but I don't really get the benefits. If you use going off on a detailed tangent here, but if you put a lot of positive,
he's a man of detail.
You put a lot of positive caster into the back end of a rear-wheel drive car, you get advantages under acceleration maybe, but you get disadvantages the other way. Yeah. And they kind of cancel each other out in my head, because the car probably spends 50% time accelerating, 50% decelerating, so it doesn't really advantage much to me. So I just said to him, look, I'm going vertical, no zero caster on the rear. He was like, yeah, that's fine. And I think I've resolved all the forces reasonably well. They're all going. All he did, he looked around the car on the lift and said, "Yeah, all the force paths are good." Simple as that. You've got forces acting directly down all the bits of steel work. Thumbs up. And it's as simple as that. You know, there's not a lot of rocket science to these things. And funnily enough, I mentioned this in a conversation outside to somebody earlier, that one of the reasons we started doing our Uncut channel was actually to blow away some of these flipping myths in this automotive industry, particularly the aftermarket and particularly classic car restoration. There is so much black art and flannel talked by people. Yeah. Where it's, you've got to see Bob about this because he's got a magic stick that fixes this problem and all this. And there's no magic to any of these things. It's just somebody knowing what to do and doing it properly. Yeah. And there's no magic to it, but there's so many people that sort of seem to intimate that there is. Yeah. And part of the reason for doing our Uncut series is I quite enjoy popping that bubble. Yeah. So, blow away the myths. It's just simple stuff.
So now, we talked about your Manta. Apparently the Manta was tragically crashed.
It was. I got rear-ended by a truck, yes.
Oh. And then you put that same Vauxhall Redtop into a Peugeot 205.
I did, yeah, rear-wheel drive converted. Yeah. I couldn't afford a Mark II Escort. Even back then, I couldn't afford a Mark II Escort. They were all scrap, and 205s don't rust. I thought, that's a pretty good equation. I checked the wheelbase on a 205, and I think they're only... I can't remember now. Are they something like 40 mil shorter wheelbase than a Mark II Escort? There's not much in it. Wow. It might have even been less. It might be 30 mil. There's not much in it between a Mark II Escort and a 205. The 205, the wheels are right in the corners. I thought, well, that's pretty close. That'll do. So I stuck an Atlas axle in it and stuck the Redtop in it on a Type 9 box and some Cosworth struts in the Sierra Cosworth struts in the front, I think. Coilovers in the back, and did a rear-wheel drive 205.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. I don't really know how well that one worked. It drove briefly. I didn't really use it very much. I wanted to go rallying. What do you call it? The short special stage rally rules changed at the time. Before that, you could use cut circuit slicks and things. Yeah. They changed the rules about the time I built that car, and suddenly your main cost is tyres, and the cost of tyres went up, and then the cost of entries all started going up, and I couldn't really afford to do it.
You realised that it was
so I packed in the idea and decided to go autograss racing instead. So I built an autograss car.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Also Redtop powered.
Now, I love a Redtop Vauxhall engine. They are legendary. But your current cars, Chevrolet LS powered classic Range Rover.
Yes.
Now that's cool.
Not finished, obviously, but
well, you're too busy building other people's cars.
Yeah, this is the problem. Time is now the problem. Yeah. So the engine's now mounted. It's LS3 basic spec, 430 horsepower, standard out the box GM spec. Yeah. 6L80. Auto box on the completely GM standard control. It's just their, I think they call it, it's their turnkey package. I forget what, Connect and Cruise. Connect and Cruise. It's the Connect and Cruise package. So it's all pretty much straight out of the box. So keep it simple because I don't want complications.
But that's a lot of power.
It's plenty enough in a live axle Range Rover.
Yeah, with no big tune needed.
Yeah. It should be decent. Yeah.
And you got a Fiat 124 Coupe.
Yeah. 71 Fiat 124 Sport Coupe. Yeah, the hardtop one, the BC one, which is the one I really like the look of, the twin light, proper early 70s Italian look. That twin light look. Really nice car. Slightly oddball looking at the back, but I kind of like their quirks. And the really thing I like about it, not that I've had a chance to really use it recently, but the thing I really like about it is the fact that I don't think I've never found another one anywhere I've gone with it. I think there might be 5 in the UK.
Oh wow!
They're very, very rare.
So we need to We need to throw that hashtag find another.
Yeah, find another Retropower
And
viewer.
when you do, you'll just
find us
simply shrug your shoulders and go, okay, there's
that'd
another.
be cool. I know at the Auto Italian meet, I don't think there's another one ever gone to that, certainly in the last 10 years.
Has that got a Redtop in it?
No, but although I've been told by everybody that works for Retropower that when are you putting the Redtop in it?
Oh, really?
But it has had an engine conversion. Slightly annoyingly, if I'm honest. It was an Italian car till 2016.
Yeah.
It's from Parma. And it was converted in Italy. They took the 1608, which is the really sweet twin cam engine. Everybody kind of on the Fiat twin cam world, Lampredi engines, the 1608 was the one to have. They're kind of 8,000 RPM out of the box, 115 horsepower twin cam in like 1969.
That's amazing.
From a 1600. Twin carbs, make all the right noises, 5-speed box then, distal round, 5-link rear end, double wishbone front, really nice car. But unfortunately, I think that died in Italy, and it's had a 2-litre from a 131 Racing put in it. So it's a 131 on a double downdraft carb at the minute. So
I've got a barn find 131 Sport to do. Haven't been there yet. It's been in the barn in the UK.
Is it reasonably local?
To here, not local.
Oh, right. I know where there's one in a barn in Leicestershire.
Get out of town.
A brown one.
What? A Sport?
A 131 Sport, yeah, 2-door, yeah.
All right, well, let's just stop. Let's stop recording all this and saddle the barn find car up, and let's just go and pull that.
I'm assuming it's still there because there was an issue with registration on it.
Well,
but yeah.
Well, we're not ending it because I'm going to go and find that barn find car.
Yeah, but we probably better wrap up.
We're going to wrap this up because I need to speak to your brother.
Yes.
Your brother's just out of shot there, basically pointing at you, telling you to shut up.
Tell him to shut up because he's warbling on about stuff.
It's time for Cal.
Yes, which
so,
it is.
But listen,
I had a thought last night. I was going to turn this interview around and ask you loads of questions, and I've run out of time because I've warbled on for too long. I haven't even had time to ask you loads of questions.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
No. We're going to hand over, and we'll do that if we've got time later. Or
just
something.
for the love of everything, don't ask me what my favourite car is.
No, I wasn't going to do that.
Good.
Don't worry.
Thank goodness for that. You can ask what my favourite biscuit is.
It's got to be chocolate hobnobs.
Chocolate hobnobs are fantastic.
I was going to say they're laced with something. I don't know, something. It can't be legal though. Right.
Thanks, chap.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.